Hello and welcome to another video at UPSCprep.com. My name is Ishan and we'll be talking about biology today. So in the previous videos, we've looked at physics and chemistry foundations. Um, Now let's look at biology and we'll be doing it in two parts because here we have to cover a lot of topics. Okay, so again to reiterate, all these lectures are foundational lectures in the sense that they are not uh, going into the depth of things, right? But we're going to look at some basic concepts and have a kind of an understanding of all those scientific concepts that we must be aware of, right? And these might be found in your NCERTs, right? But yes, nonetheless, they are important from the point of view of understanding concepts, advanced concepts for your exam, right? So let's begin. For biology, you can look at the living world. How does it look like? Now, the living world, everything is is classified into groups, right? And if you look at it, the biggest group is the kingdom. Under kingdom, you have phylum, then you have class, order, family, genus, and species, right? So you can look at the example. The kingdom, if the kingdom is animalia, or just the kingdom of animals, it refers to organisms that can move on their own, right? However, if they have a backbone, they will belong to the chordate phylum. If they have fur or hair, they will belong to mammals. If they have collarbones and grasping fingers, they will belong to primates. If they have relatively flat faces and three-dimensional vision, hominids. Under hominids, if they have upright posture and large brains, they will be called Homo. And if they have thin skull bones and a high forehead, then they will be called Homo sapiens, right? So you can see the classification. It you can say drills down progressively, and then you can say, okay, this is a part of this, is a part of this, and that, and so on and so forth, right? So species is the lowest order, or you can say the lowest group, and then uh, you have genus, family, order, class, phylum, and kingdom. Now you can remember this in the same order, right? That will help you in understanding whenever such terms are used in your um, study materials, right? So that's how it is. And then if you look at it, when we name anything, usually say the genus first and the species later. And the scientific naming is such that you start with the capital letter, right? This is the genus, right? Homo is the genus, and then you continue with the small letters. You don't use S as capital here, and this is the species, right? So that is how you're supposed to write these names. Okay, so this is Homo sapiens, and this is for us humans. All right, so that's about that. And then if you look at some terms like growth, reproduction, metabolism, right? So growth and reproduction, they're different in the sense that growth is associated with, you can say, uh, the organisms' features like their size, right? However, reproduction is you're producing another organism, right? So that is the difference, okay? And it refers to all the reactions that take place in your body, right? That use or convert energy, right? So any reaction that is using energy, that is going to be referred to metabolic reaction, right? So your growth, reproduction, all these requires these kind of reactions, okay? So that's a basic overview. Then if you look at it, all living beings are made up of a small units called cells, right? So this is how a typical cell would look like. I mean, this is a eukaryotic cell. That's a special type of cell which has a nucleus, right? However, there might be cells which don't have a nucleus, right? But this is how a general animal cell would look like. I'm showing you the diagram of an animal cell, right? And if you look at it, there's nucleus which serves like the brain, or you can say it's the control center of the whole cell. Mitochondria is the one which is giving energy. Ribosomes is the place where they are the ones who are going to produce proteins, right? Going to help in the protein synthesis, right? Then cell membrane is the one which is going to provide a protective covering. Cytoplasm is just the solution spread around in the cell. Endoplasmic reticulum for transportation. Nucleolus is the place from where ribosomes are going to originate. Now, I'm giving you a very rapid overview of all these different parts, right? We can look at the details later on, but this is how a cell looks like, and these are the different parts of everything is responsible for its own kind of a function, right? And all together they constitute the cell, and these small parts, they are called as the cell organelles, right? So just like your organs, cell has organelles, and these organelles are the one that are performing various functions inside the cell. Now there might be more organelles inside the animal cell itself. We're not looking at all of them, and they if it's if it's a plant cell, there might be new organelles, and if it's a prokaryotic cell, there might be another type of an organelle, right? So these are some general examples of organelles that we have seen in an animal cell, but there can be more. All right, let's come to cell division. Now, your cells divide using using two processes. One is mitosis, that's meant for body cells, while another is meiosis, which meant for gametes or sex cells, right? In mitosis, what happens is if you have a cell, you produce only two daughter cells, right? And these cells are diploid, which means they have 2n number of chromosomes. Now, just to understand, there's something called a chromosome, and there's something called a number 2n, right? Let's not go into the details right now, right? So here you have a cell which has 2n number of chromosomes, and the daughter cells also have 2n number of chromosomes that are called as 2n is called as diploid. All right, and they are genetically identical to the parent cell. Okay, so here, whatever cell you have, the exact replica is produced in the daughter cells, right? And only one cell division occurs. So there are different stages in mitosis, and only one stage is there where actually cell division is there, all right? In meiosis, what happens is there are four cells which are produced. So you can see that there is one cell, and then you produce four cells, right? And here you have daughter cells which are haploid, which means every cell has n number of chromosomes. Okay, so you can just understand is that as n, and these daughter cells are genetically different from, right, from the parent cell. So each one of these is different from the parent cell, and there are two stages where cell division will occur, right? So that's your meiosis. Okay, then let's come to prokaryotes, eukaryotes. These are just terms which are something that you should be knowing. So prokaryote cells are ones which don't have a nucleus and don't have a membrane, and they have a very simple structure. So example of this is bacteria. If you look at Google a picture of bacteria, you will find that there's no nucleus and there's no membrane. The cell has a very simple structure like this, right? And the DNA, the genetic material will just be spread around, right? And there'll be a few organelles here and there. While in eukaryotes, the cell that we have seen earlier, it has a nucleus, it has a membrane, and it has a complex structure that you have seen. All right, so those cells are something like animal cells. Okay, they are eukaryotic cells. Now, what are autotrophs? They are organisms that make their own food, and heterotrophs, which depend on others for making a food. Now, why are we looking at these terms? Because now we'll look at the kingdom classification. All right, and we'll find that there are five kingdoms. Right, there are five kingdoms, uh, which are Monera, Protista, fungi, plants, and animals. All right, and these are different in terms of, you can see whether they are prokaryotes or eukaryotes. So only Monera is prokaryote, it's unicellular, while others, they are eukaryotes. Okay, others are eukaryotes. Protista is unicellular, Monera is unicellular, which means they are single-celled organisms, while others, they could be multicellular. Mostly they are multicellular. And fungi could be unicellular as well, but plants and animals, they're always multicellular, right? Now you can see we are talking about autotrophs and heterotrophs. So Monera, they could be autotrophs or heterotrophs. Same for Protista. But plants always produce their own food, and animals always depend on others for their food. While if you look at fungi, there are different terms used. So saprophytic means they will feed on either dead and decaying matter, or they are parasitic, which means that they will depend on someone else. So they will be living inside the host for getting food, right? So they'll basically be living on another organism for food, right? Or it could be symbiotic as well. Symbiotic means that it's a mutually beneficial relationship, that some guy gives something to some organism, and in return it gets something as food, right? So there are different mechanisms in which these groups will obtain their food. If you look at their body here, Monera, they lack a well-defined nucleus. Protista, they will use something called cilia for movement. So it's like a tail-like thing, right, at the end of the cell. So it's something that helps them move. Then fungus is made up of filaments called hyphae. The network is called mycelium. All these terms you usually you should be aware of, but don't fret about it if you don't remember it, right? But just something that you should know. Um, Plants, they exhibit high level of tissue differentiation, which means that they have different types of tissues. Like you can see xylem and phloem. The xylem is used for transpiration of water, phloem is used for food, and they also have different body organs. So there is a stem, there is a leaf, right? All these things are there. Same for animals, they have a high level of tissue differentiation. So you have an epithelial tissue and you have a connective tissue and muscular. So different types of tissues are there, and there are different types of body organs, your heart, liver, kidneys, hand, right? And they have also got a well-developed nervous system, right? So they have a brain and a spinal cord and nerve cells as well. Okay. So you can see the examples over here. Bacteria belongs to Pulmonera, amoeba is Protista, yeast, mushrooms, they are fungi, trees, plants, shrubs, they are plants, fish, insects, all these things, they are animals. All right, so that's the classification. And then we look at the biomolecules, and we have looked at it earlier as well in the last video, right? What happens over here is you can see these biomolecules, they are made up of these monomers. So monosaccharides, and a long chain of monosaccharides is there. It makes up a carbohydrate. If you have amino acids, they will make up proteins. If you have nucleotides, it will make up DNA or RNA. If you have fatty acids, they will make up lipids. Okay, so these are the monomers, and you can see the function. So carbohydrates, they're going to provide energy. We saw that last time also. They are used for providing energy. So all these food sources, pastas, bread, fruit, vegetables, they are going to provide you energy, and they also help in the building of cell membrane, right? So that's another function. And you can look at their examples: glucose, fructose, lactose, cellulose. Proteins, again, they provide structure and they help in muscle movement, and they also help in providing immunity. You can look at these food sources and the examples. Right, so proteins, all of you must be aware, whenever organism has to grow, proteins are the most important food source. Okay. Then nucleic acids like DNA and RNA, they contain genetic information, and you don't get it from food. Genetic information is something that is inherited, right? So you don't get it from food, and they're anyway helpful for growth and development, right? Because they got the genetic information that they contain the genes, right? Then you have lipids with something which stores energy. They provide cushion, insulation for organisms, and they are also something that is used for cell membrane. They are material used for cell membrane. Okay, so you can see the example: butter, nuts, oil, and these are the food sources, and fats, oils, waxes. These are examples of um lipids. Okay, so that's in the part one of this video. If you have any questions, you can ping me, and we'll continue this in part two. Now, just remember that these are all the basic things that we are covering very quickly, and once we have all these basics clear, then we'll move on to the more advanced concepts and slightly go at a slower pace and into more depth of all these things. All right, so thank you and all the best. See you next time.